Hey guys, Jared here, and thanks for joining me as I recap EA's E3 2015 press conference. So, straight out of the gate, they opened up by showing the Mass Effect Andromeda trailer. And there's the trailer there. They didn't announce like really anything else about it except for that it's coming holiday 2016. So it's still a ways off, and we'll definitely be seeing more stuff about it at E3 2016. Next thing they show is Need for Speed. It takes place in Ventura Bay, and it is supposedly 2 times bigger than Rivals was. So that seems pretty big. I never actually played Rivals, I don't believe, but the customization system is much deeper than any Need for Speed game has been so far. And out of the Need for Speed games I played, I don't really remember any customization other than just paint jobs. So that's interesting. The game's coming out November 3. And a couple of things about the characters, like there's actual like a story to this game, kind of like Need for Speed The Run had. And anyways, and then you can even it seems like play as different racers. Um, Now I'm not sure about this, but it seems like most of the cutscenes in the game may possibly be like live action, because what they showed was live action, and then it blended to gameplay like very seamlessly. But that it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But another cool thing I noticed is once they started showing the gameplay, it's like there's these live like open world events. So when you're like just going around the world, like there'll just be a race, and then you can like jump into the race or whatever, and cops are after you and everything. So it seems like it goes a lot like back to Need for Speed's roots, and has like a lot of the cop chases and all that stuff in there. So that's pretty cool. Looking forward to it. Um, I guess I'll probably share my thoughts on the talk about Need for Speed having always online DRM. And in short, basically, I hate it, but for right now, that seems like the only way they are going to be doing it, because they're trying to crack down on piracy, and that's what they're settling on. I don't think there's any change to that, at least for now. But hopefully, we won't be seeing too much always online DRM in the future. Um, so EA next they showed Star Wars: The Old Republic, Knights of the Fallen Empire. So that extension or whatever, they're saying it's going back to like BioWare's like storytelling. So it's the choices, and there's gonna be choices and decisions that are very impactful on the story, and just like a story that really kind of lies in your heart in a special place. It's very touching, and it pulls at your emotions and everything. But even the trailer, I gotta say, even in the short version, they showed an extended trailer later. But like in the press conference, they showed a 2 minute video, game trailer of it, and it was kind of almost like a teaser trailer. But they didn't have any dialogue in it at all. It was completely just music and then the picture. But like even within that trailer, there was a great deal of storytelling take place, and it was really, really intriguing. So the cool thing about this is it's free to all subscribers of Star Wars: The Old Republic, since it's a paid subscription service thing. And the Knights of the Fallen Empire will be coming out October 27 of this year. So the next thing they show is from an indie developer. It's called Unraveled, and the guy that came out and presented it, he was talking about how he came up with the character, and the character's name is Yarny, and he's made from yarn. And he was saying how he came up with the character on a camping trip and all that cool stuff. But like he actually pulled out Yarny, and it's like a physical. What's in the game? The character in the game is like a physical thing that he made while he was on this camping trip. But anyways, he seemed very passionate about it, and you could tell it had a special place in his heart. So this game is really going to mean a lot to him. And as far as most indie games go, it looks like a pretty good one, and it has like a fairly unique concept. So looking forward to seeing more on that in the future. I mean, I guess it didn't pique my interest too much, but maybe just the fact that there is so much love being put into this game. Maybe I'll give it a try, and it'll tell a great story just through its gameplay. So next thing they showed was Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 2. So Microsoft, they already showed a bit about of this, but EA, they since it's their game, they kind of expanded upon it. I'm pretty sure EA it's not a first party title. I think they just publish it, but Anyways, so there was like a superhero zombie guy, costume guy, a guy in a costume that came out. It was like waving. They were playing Danger Zone, like they had in the trailer and everything. It was pretty funny. And then a guy came out on the stage and like, no, it's okay. It's my turn now. You gotta go. You've outstayed your welcome. But anyways, the game looks pretty interesting. Garden Warfare apparently. They got sold over 6 million copies and had 6 million, over 6 million players. So it did pretty well for them. So they of course got a sequel, and in this one, the plants are on the attack. So it's more attack focused on the plant size rather than defending, as it has been in the original Plants vs Zombies and the first Garden Warfare. The game is apparently going to be taking place in past, present, and future. And one of the cool things is there will be a 4-player zombie co-op mode called Graveyard Ops. And it was like the most requested thing by players. So that's one of the new things they've implemented. And you'll notice a trend here based on like requests from players and stuff like that, as I talk about the other stuff that they've announced, especially in the sports titles. But anyways, back to Garden Warfare 2. The second most requested feature was like a solo play option, and you can play every mode in solo with like AI and all that stuff. But it's also playable in split screen. I believe only 2 players in split screen though, but I might be wrong about that. The other cool thing is there's a data transfer that they allow you to transfer over all your classes and characters and stuff like that from the first Garden Warfare to Garden Warfare 2. And the game is coming spring 2016. So I never played the first Garden Warfare, but this one looks pretty good. It reminds me a lot of like Loadout. If you played that game, it's a free-to-play game. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of that, just like in the way it seems like the guns function and you walk around the world, and even kind of in the animations and even kind of like the textures of the game and all that. So next up, we get into EA's sports titles, and of course EA's got a lot of them. They're like the number one, it's EA Sports. They have like a separate division for that. So the first one they showed was NHL 16, and then they talked a little bit about EA Sports Ultimate Teams, where you can like create your own teams and all that stuff. I'm not too big of a sports fan. I haven't like checked into a lot of that stuff, but it looks like they're making a lot of improvements to the game. And then they talked about NBA Live 16. And they talked all about player flair and expression, not like the gamer, but like the actual basketball player. So they want to be able to essentially make the basketball players in the game come to life and be much like they are in real life. So if they have any special quirks or I guess signature moves that they do, either like in their play style or maybe like celebrating after they score a shot, they wanted to put those into the game. And they seem to do it fairly well, which seems like that's something that an NBA game, or pretty much any sports game for that matter, hasn't really had that much. Then there's this guy that came out, his name's the Hoop God, or he's referred to that. He wasn't an actual basketball player, I don't think. I mean, he was a lot shorter than most basketball players, but I think what he is, maybe he's like, I really don't know, maybe he's big in fantasy basketball. I know there's no fantasy, it's just fantasy football. I don't really know who he was. Maybe he was just some guy who plays the game a lot. I have really no clue who he was, but they modeled his face into the game, and it was on like an actual player. So like you can actually model your face onto a character that you play in the game, play basketball with. So you can be playing basketball in the game, which is kind of neat. And it's all done with this app on your iPhone, and I think it's on Android devices as well. It's Game Face HD, and that allows you to scan your face and model it into the game. So then they talked some about mobile. Actually, let's just talk about some of the sports stuff. So skipping ahead to some of the mobile stuff, they talked about that. They talked about FIFA 16, but before that, they brought Pele out on stage, who is like the greatest football player, soccer player for people who are like solely into American football. Anyways, they brought him out on stage, and he talked a lot about the beautiful game, which is what's football, soccer is known as. And I didn't really know too much before about why Brazil is kind of like a really big name in soccer, but now getting to know about Pele more and the fact that he played for Brazil, I see why Brazil is like this big name in soccer now. So, anyways, in FIFA 16, um, they showed a lot of gameplay improvements as they did with like all the other sports games, and basically just showing like, okay, there's these things you can do, these kicks, you can do these new types of blocks and all that stuff, just all that cool jazz, and that's really something that was concurrent through all of EA's, all the games they talked about, was that they were saying, okay, we've made a lot of improvements to these games, we've listened to consumers' feedback, and we've made a lot of these changes that we think players will like. So that seemed to be like a really big tune that EA was singing, that like, we've listened to players and we fixed the mistakes that we've made in previous games. And even I would say through E3, at least like in a company like Ubisoft, they even had several type of apology things, especially when it came to Assassin's Creed. But you can hear more about that in my Ubisoft press conference recap. But yeah, another cool thing about FIFA 16 though is they have women's teams for the first time. But well, that's cool and all, but what really confused me or made it seem like they were just making an excuse is they were saying that the reason it's taken them till now is because their modeling technology, like they said, they couldn't create like the women players like good enough or something. They made something that sounded just like an excuse, like, oh, this is why we don't have women in the game yet. But I think the reason why is because, there's a lot of like feminist stuff that's kind of coming into the gaming industry, and they're just kind of wanting to play it safe and put women's teams in here. But to me, it just sounded like a bunch of baloney, because there doesn't seem to be any reason why they couldn't have had female teams in a FIFA game before. But anyways, moving on. One of my the things that intrigued me most and I got most excited for as part of this conference was Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Now, after they announced it, I actually have been playing the original Mirror's Edge again, and this is my second or third time coming back to the game since I first got it, and every time I've liked it more and more. So I can't wait for Mirror's Edge Catalyst. It looks good. They showed a little bit of gameplay. The game looks gorgeous. And things seem to be maybe smoothed out a bit from the original Mirror's Edge. So there's no guns in the game, which is a big announcement that they made before. They say Faith doesn't need guns. It's kind of making a statement. And I think really, if you're into the speed running, like you are actively participating in what the core of Mirror's Edge was, you never really used guns in the first place. So I don't think it's really necessary, but yeah, I think it's kind of good that they're going that way, because it encourages them to not default to guns, and they're focusing more on the core of what Mirror's Edge is. So two other things about it is that the game, for once, is going to be open world this time. No levels. It's going to be open world, and in my opinion, Mirror's Edge is like the perfect game in order to to have an open world in, because it's about free running, so it just fits perfectly. The second thing is that this is going to be an origin story, so it takes place before Mirror's Edge, and I know in the first Mirror's Edge game, it's right after Faith she's kind of like back in action after she took a hard fall or whatever. So I'm assuming that's going to play a big role towards the end of the story in Mirror's Edge Catalyst. But yeah, this is kind of Faith's origin story. And the game is releasing February 23 of 2016. One more thing I forgot about when I was talking about the sports, but they announced Madden 16. And they talked about Draft Champions, which allows you, it's like a second screen thing, not to play as you play the game, but you draft your players on your mobile device, and then you play them in Madden 16. So they kind of go hand in hand with each other. And Madden 16 is coming out August 25. So their finale was Star Wars Battlefront. And I gotta say, when I saw the first trailer, I'm like, okay, this is just, they say it's in-engine, but like, I don't know, it looks too good. The game's not going to look this good. And of course it doesn't, but I had my doubts about the game, but when they showed some of the gameplay has a lot of DNA. Looks a lot like Battlefield, but to me it seems like DICE is actually doing it a justice. and it is just it has enough of Battlefield in it to make it more mainstream, but it retains a lot of what was in the previous Star Wars Battlefronts. It doesn't really copy it, but it's like a modernized version of that, and I think it nails the feel pretty good. And they still have like the special character you can play as Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, and you even have the X-Wings and the TIE Fighters and the Walkers and AT-ATs, well, that's what they are. But the game actually looks really, really good. And of course, you can play it in both first person and third person, just as you could in the previous battlefields or battlefronts. Excuse me. Okay, I messed up on that. But yeah, the game looks really good, and I mean, it's kind of a shame, though, that they're not going to have as many maps and they're not going to have the space battles and everything. But to me, I feel like they're kind of focusing on just this, like, certain core elements of it. And if it gets a sequel, they better expand on what they got. Because right now, the original Star Wars Battlefront and Battlefront 2, they had much more content than what this one does. I'm also hoping they don't put battle packs into it, but so far this game is looking good, and I think DICE seems to be doing a fantastic job at it. The game, the graphics look good and everything, so I can't wait to get my hands on it and see if it lives up to the hype. So some other stuff I'll talk about, like it's got a single player. It does have a single player, which it seems like before, on this one chart that somebody made, there was no single player, but apparently there is single player in Star Wars Battlefront, and there is also split screen, so that is cool. The game's coming out November 17, so yeah, good game to pick up before the holiday, although, as you guys would probably guess, I would recommend you pick up Fallout 4 instead. Just play that over the holiday. That'll be good enough for you. Yeah, so one thing they did mention when they were talking about Battlefront was the guy who came out and talked about the Frostbite engine, how it's running on the Frostbite engine, and they really seem to reiterate that Frostbite is like, it's the future for EA and for DICE and all that. And to me, it's a really great engine. I know a lot of great games and visually impressive games have been made from that on EA's side, in the EA camp. And it's good to see that they're really just, rather than having a bunch of engines, they're trying to focus on creating one core engine that they can use for a bunch of their games that it's very universal. One other thing I will say before closing this up is that from the very beginning, I would say EA was not very secretive of what they were going to be talking about during the press conference. They were very open from the beginning. They even said, like, yeah, we're going to have Star Wars Battlefront as the finale. And they were very open about that. And I think they could have been a little better at maybe leaving some surprises in there. But it seems like previously they'd already announced a lot of that stuff. They already announced Star Wars Battlefront and all this stuff. So it didn't seem like there was much to surprise us with. But I just think they could have been a little, kind of built the not necessarily the hype up, but just, got people more pumped up before they revealed some of this stuff. But anyways, so that wraps up my recap and impressions of EA's 2015 press conference. So if you liked it, make sure to hit the like button and leave a comment and tell me what you thought of it. So thanks for watching, and as always, I hope to see you in the next video.